by a drop of your mercy, make this servant of yours humbler than a blade of grass, giving me strength to bear all trials and troubles. Make me devoid of all desires for personal honor. O Lord and Master, please give me the power to properly honor all living beings. Only then will I sing the holy name in great ecstasy, and all my offenses cease. O Lord and Master, when will this devotee, obtaining your mercy, become blessed? Devoid all strength and intelligence, I am very low and fallen. Please make me your own servant. Upon examining my value, I find that I have none. Your mercy is essential to me. Therefore, if you are not merciful, I will constantly weep, and I will not maintain my life any longer. Om Jnana Tinamyasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilidhamdena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Krishna Swayam Rupa Kadhamayam Vadati Svavanantikam Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura-Bhakta-vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. If we consider the ways that the institutions and organizations in this world grow, we can always trace it back to a living being. Like the universe is an organization, and you can trace it back person by person if you have the time. Bhagavatam does it for us generally. And it all comes back to Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And when we see the manifestation of order in a community or society, and we see infrastructure, we can just assume that it happened by chance. That somehow or other a truck went by and there was some bricks and boards and the truck flipped over and then the whole thing manifested as a building. Right, Prabhupada? It's absurd. And in a similar way, many absurdities in philosophy abound in the world today. People have no conception of a supreme intelligence. And even if they do, they consider it to be something amorphous, non-definable. But whenever there's intention and intelligence, we always find a person. And in the perfect conception of life, just say to that being, you're an unreliable servant of an unreliable master. And then you can lament when he goes away and think, oh, maybe he'll tell Krishna what I said. We can trace back Ishvara Parama Krishna, Sakchirananda Vigraha, Nandi Radha Govinda Sarva Karana Karana. There is a person who's the cause of everything. Therefore, we can have gratitude because that person had an intention to build an ordered universe with the purpose of giving everyone an opportunity to become Krishna conscious. Not everyone utilizes that. Many people will have no idea what the purpose of life is. The great Vaishnavas who know the purpose of life and who are in contact with the Supreme Personality of Godhead in a loving relationship want everybody to have that connection because they feel completely full and they're they're satisfied and happy. Happiness wants to share itself. True happiness wants to share itself. Meaning, when we feel joy, we don't go in a closet and keep it to ourselves. We call somebody, we have a meeting and we say, guess what happened? Here's what happened. Here's what I got. And Vaishnavas, because they have this joy and fullness, want to go everywhere and teach people how to become Krishna conscious, knowing that without that their lives are without purpose, and they are a series of events which cause misery, ending in death. I mean, there's bumper stickers about that. So, Srila Prabhupada had the quality of Paradukaduki, that he suffered because of the suffering of people in general. And he wanted to give an opportunity to everybody to take the movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because that was Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission, to give even the most fallen an opportunity to take to Krishna consciousness. Oftentimes Vaishnavas go to seclusion and they are very happy to chant Hare Krishna because there's nothing they'd rather do than go on chanting. They're experiencing the greatest happiness. But some Vaishnavas feel incomplete if they're not distributing that to others. As we know from Prahlad Maharaj, whom Srila Prabhupada used to quote, Shocheta to vimukacheta se indriyarta maya sukaya hadamukha hato vimudham. Prahlad was saying, I'm fine, but in another sense I'm not fine, because shoche, I'm lamenting, I feel sad for the people. Shocheta to vimukha cheta se indriyarta. They're simply chasing after the senses, and they've taken on a huge burden of material existence, just maintenance for no purpose. And therefore, he wanted to suffer for the suffering of others and make sure that they got Krishna consciousness. And that was Srila Prabhupada's impetus from the very beginning. That in India, he looked for ways he could organize devotees and invite people who were not Krishna consciousness into the fold and train them so that they could achieve the highest purpose of life. You'll find in many of his writings the schematics for a society of education, where step by step people could come in and they would learn how to become Brahmins, how to be clean, how to be tolerant, learn the higher qualities of life, and then how they could become Vaishnavas. And Prabhupada started in India. In many ways, he had gotten to a place in his life where he left home and became a vanaprastha. And he looked for service in the Gaudiya Math, where he got opportunity to oversee a magazine that one of the branches of Gaudiya Math was producing. But Prabhupada's vision for it was much bigger than they had wanted. And they summarily released him from his service. The letters are there, where they say, not quite like that, that's not what we had in mind. And Prabhupada also started an organization in India called the League of Devotees. And his project was preempted by some other mundane project. They had offered Prabhupada this space and then they took it back. You imagine the feelings of setback. His whole impetus was to find a way to make sure that people everywhere could come into Krishna consciousness. And of course, he started writing his books, came to America, and when he was successful in America, then he came to India, and you'll see in some of the photographs of Prabhupada coming to India, coming back to India, he brought with him some of his disciples wearing a suit and tie. Why did he do that? At the time Prabhupada started his movement, around 1965, in India, everyone was looking to the West. And in America, at least in many places in America, around intellectual centers, there was a romantic movement going on, and people were looking for truth in life, find the essence of life, and many people were looking towards the East. So it was an interesting phenomenon. Nehru had started these technical colleges, the idea that India would rule the world through technology, technological know-how, and they'd be the leaders in that, which they've pretty much achieved. And when Prabhupada came to America, in a certain section he was very well received because there were many seekers who had given up on the materialistic way of life. Prabhupada noted it many times that you're all rich, you come from great families, you have best universities, you're all good looking, he would say. So you know, but now you're looking somewhere else. So when he came back to India, he brought his Western disciples with him to shock India, to say, what are you guys looking over there for? They're coming with me over here. And that had a very profound effect. Then Prabhupada thought in terms of making facility, because his foray into the West, albeit with no facility, had become more and more funded and people were taking to it. Now he thought of ways to make facility for the people who are coming to Krishna consciousness, to have a place. As an example, he was mentioning in some of his earlier letters that you need an America house, meaning some guest house where at that time it was mostly Americans who had become devotees and of course spent to London and elsewhere around the West. He needed a place for them to stay. And he also wanted to establish in India the footprint of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So Mayapur was where his Guru Maharaj had made a flagship temple, which was the base for his movement, for his devotees to go out around the world and bring people back to Mayapur. And there were few devotees from the Gaudiya Math who went to other places like Burma. Śrīla Bhaktisiddhanta had a cordial relationship with the king of Burma, and therefore there was some agreement that some devotees could go there and preach. And notoriously, some devotees from the Gaudiya Math went to the UK. But it was more that they got converted than they converted others. And Śrīla Bhaktisiddhanta, although he was funding that excursion, he felt discouraged to see that they weren't having much effect. So, all that considered, Prabhupada knew what his spiritual master wanted, and he followed the same pattern that his spiritual master had set, but he carried it forward in a way that his Guru's blueprint could be developed all over the world. This Mayapur project is something that started with just, as we'll see in a few minutes when we go to Prabhupada's first dwelling here, which is a little grass hut, just started with a field. And it was an extremely rural area, and even Bengal itself was a sleepy little place. Back when we were coming, there were still the telas running up and down the street in Calcutta. That meant actually human beings pulling on carts with bare feet, running down the street with people sitting on it. Have you ever seen those? Maybe in pictures or cartoons? And Dumdum Airport was not modern at all when we landed. Remember that there was one of the officials sitting on the floor, and he had a stack of forms, and he had a little nail, and he was punching holes in the corners to tie them together with string, meaning that the technological age had not reached India at all. And here in Mayapur, when Prabhupada was able to procure the property, then set down here a few devotees, and he also built his little hut there, and they just started worshiping the deity. And that was one of Prabhupada's ways of conquering, that he'd find the place, however raw it was, and he'd establish the deity and stay there and chant. And when you do that, then one thing leads to another. Once a GBC member who had a project in Hong Kong, there was a fledgling project and it wasn't doing well, there was problems. He had closed the temple because there was nobody there. He had come to Vṛndāvana and he told Prabhupada that I closed the center there in Hong Kong. Prabhupada said, go back, get an apartment, open it up, and sit there and chant. And here in Mayapur, land was there after some endeavor, and then Prabhupada set up a place where the deities, Sri Sri Gaurnitai, were worshipped, and then devotees were chanting. And one thing led to another by Krishna's arrangement. Now we can see that there's a little bit more infrastructure here. Prabhupada had the devotees that were in early ISKCON in the 70s come to Mayapur and Vṛndāvana and sometimes Jagannātha Purī on the way in between the two. And he invited the devotees from all over the world. He said, all of you should come here and meet with me here in Mayapur. And he said we should discuss unity and diversity. We have kīrtanas, and Prabhupada said that should be the time of discussion. Here in Mayapur, it was a time when, in the fledgling movement, devotees from all over the world who were preaching in various countries would come together and meet one another and discuss how it was going in various places. In the afternoon, we'd go from the temple, such that it was, the living facilities here were very rough. If you think that your room is a little simple, I hate to tell these back when I was a boy stories, but the room I stayed in as a brahmacārī was on the wall. That was the simplest of dwellings. Because there weren't enough rooms, the wall is there, and they just leaned some plywood off of the wall and then cut a little hole so we could get in there. The floor was dirt. There was no latrine at all. Just a big pit in the middle of the field with a kind of a fence around it. And water, there was no, all there were the pumps. There was no drinking water, there was no shower, there was no hot water, there was no bottled water. That didn't come in until much later in the 80s here in India. And nonetheless, Prabhupada pushed on. He invited everyone to come here because he saw that the essence was come together, chant Har Krishna, and discuss how we can cooperate, which was one of his main points, to spread the Krishna consciousness movement. And devotees would come here and discuss and hear how one another were doing. In the daytime, everyone would go to the Ganges, and it wasn't as far away as it is now, but you could go walk up and down the Ganges, and every one of the leaders from different parts of the world would be sitting, and then there would be a circle of devotees around that leader all the way up the Ganges, and there'd be classes going on, Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita in discussion. And then in the morning, the doctor would give class in the temple that's there now. And in the evening, he would give darshan in these rooms. And many devotees would come and crowd in the rooms. And one evening, while we were in there, and the darshan was over. One of my godbrothers, who I partnered with on book distribution, kept inviting everybody else to go out first because he had a plan that he was going to meet Prabhupada. And when everyone was gone, he turned around and went back to Prabhupada and asked him a question that a lot of devotees had, which is, should I live in the West or should I move here to the Dham? And Prabhupada said, the West is for preaching or for sense gratification. And his indication was, if you're going to the West, then you should go there to preach. Otherwise, you'll just be engulfed by sense gratification. You notice that in Prabhupada's bedroom, he has a picture of Sri Radha Govinda. Those are the deities in Brooklyn. And Prabhupada, although he was in Mayapur, he was thinking about Radha Govinda every night before he took rest. In fact, there's a section that one of my godbrothers pointed out of how he had mentioned how he was thinking about the project in New York, and he had Radha Govinda on the wall. But it's not retrofit. This is not a new thing that somebody put Radha Govinda on the wall. Those deities were on his wall when he was here. So, although Prabhupada was in the Dham, he was thinking about the West, and he was thinking about how to expand the project. He had procured a skyscraper building in Manhattan, coming from a mud field, it was just rice fields, to a skyscraper building in Manhattan. And it all started with Prabhupada establishing Gauri Thai deities, chanting Har Krishna, and just teaching the Bhagavad Gita straightforwardly. So this is our legacy. All of you are young and smart and very talented. And if you wish, you could take this same path, pick up the legacy. It's simple, but it means that you have to have some grit. As we heard in the song Gurudev, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is speaking from the point of view of disciple, having to overcome obstacles. And there are plenty, from our own minds and bodies, and from people who would deviate from the path of devotional service, or people in general who just hate God and would like to see you jump in a lake. But if you can take from this place, from the history of Prabhupada here, the importance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and how the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we say, Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu, Dina Bandho Jagatpate, Krishna's so kind, he even saved Putana. But I just heard Prabhupada 2 days ago in a lecture I was listening to early in the morning say that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Nityananda, they're more merciful than Krishna. How could that be? They're going to the West, they're going as far west as possible and giving everyone a chance to take the Krishna consciousness. So you can remember how Prabhupada had one-mindedness to save the conditioned souls. What he established here now is growing exponentially. Millions of people are coming here every year, and tens of millions will come with the TLDP. But the world's still wide open and just calling out for those who would just take the simple formula to teach Krishna consciousness to others, take it seriously yourself, Prabhupada used to say, and then bring it out and give it to as many other people as possible so that they can also be recipients of Lord Chaitanya's mercy. Any question or reflection? You can always count on you, Bob. Do we have the microphone in this makeshift situation?
No.
Go ahead, just tell me.
Why did Śrīla Prabhupada, if he's a pure devotee and Nityananda, fail?
Why did Śrīla Prabhupada?
If he's a pure devotee and Nityananda fails so many times before.
Because he's a pure devotee, But how could something fail? What failed? How did he fail so many times? Well, it depends on your definition of failure. For instance, I teach devotees and I tell myself when I go on book distribution that the real success is just walking out the door. If I can do that, I consider my life a success that day. If I think that when I walk out the door, everyone will take a book, then I'm certainly going to, from that standard, think that I failed, because I'm not going to get that. And the standard of success is that in all circumstances where we go on serving Krishna. In the Gita, Krishna says, Matra sparshas dikanteya sutosna sukadugada agama paina vidastam sutikshashvagarata. One just tolerates whatever comes, and the way we tolerate is because we know we have a higher purpose. And so, Prabhupada was never a failure because he never gave up his service. There were, as I mentioned, devotees from the Gaudiya Math who later on gave up the order of their spiritual master. There are in the Chaitanya Charitamrita mentioned by Kaviraj Goswami, sons of the Vaitacharya, who deviated from his teaching. And they are called asara, useless. They failed. But anyone who keeps on, despite the fact that there are obstacles, is never a failure. And nor do they feel as failures because they have the determination in their heart that no matter what happens, I'm going to continue my service. And that's something Indradyumna Maharaj mentioned the other day. Bhaktivinoda Thakur used to say that the trouble I undergo, so-called failures that come to me while I'm pursuing the order of my spiritual master, these are my greatest bliss. So you can never fail if you continue in the process of devotional service. And once on a morning walk here in Mayapur, one of Prabhupada's senior disciples, on behalf of other disciples, asked Prabhupada a similar question. He said, well, say a pure devotee is perfect. So why do we see that the pure devotee wears glasses? And he said, and also we notice, what if a pure devotee forgets a verse? Because you've not understood what perfect means. Perfect means perfectly determined to go on spreading the Krishna consciousness movement. That is the standard. It's not that the spiritual master is omniscient like Krishna or omnipotent. But pure devotee always depends on Krishna's omnipotence and not his or her own. And is fully determined. That we can do. We cannot go without wearing glasses, at least I can't right now. Otherwise I wouldn't be able to see properly. Nor am I in the category of the topic I'm discussing. But I'm pointing out that it's not an external consideration. It's the decision that each one of us makes that I'm going to serve Krishna. That makes you perfect. In any situation, if you decide I'm going to serve Krishna and not Maya, that's your choice because you're a living being and you get to make choices that Krishna has given you eternally. And if you say, no matter whether I do it perfectly or not, I'm going to serve Krishna, even if I show up as the worst example of a kirtaniya, or whatever I do seems to be fraught with my own ineptitude. Because my determination is to serve Krishna, that's perfect. And that's why Krishna says in the Gita, for everyone to hear, api chet sudaracharo bhajate mamananyava sadareva samantavya samyam yamsito hisa. You know what that means? It means even if a person is a total wreck and does something that's really awful or stupid, if in their heart their intention was correct and it continues to be correct and they don't give up, And Krishna says, you have to call them saintly. He orders us. Because that's what Krishna sees as the intention. In fact, that's what everybody sees. Everybody's looking for the intention. What did you intend? The whole court system is to figure out, what did the person intend to do? Did you intend to kill the guy, or was it an accident? Because if it was an accident, all right, it's not that big a deal. But if you meant to do it, we're going to have to execute you. And in a similar way, Krishna's looking for an intention, and the intention of a pure devotee is to continue serving Krishna without stoppage. And Nirgula wants to make a few comments. Here.
I would just like to add a little something to what Prabhu said. I see the obstacles and the failures that Srila Prabhupada had in his life as examples for us. If everything had gone smoothly with Srila Prabhupada, we could all just say he's a pure devotee. So, of course everything's going to go nicely with him. But Prabhupada had failure in business. He had difficulties in family life. He had difficulties in spreading Krishna consciousness. And he, by his determination and Krishna's mercy, overcame them all. And so for me, I have no excuse. I haven't come up against the obstacles that Srila Prabhupada came up against. I didn't have to. I'm the age that Srila Prabhupada came to America, and it just, I can't fathom it. Not knowing anyone, not having any luxury, just having the faith in the direction and the order of my spiritual master to go on. And so all those, like the biography, one of the biographies says, a lifetime in preparation. For me, it shows that it's not easy, even for the pure devotee. Krishna doesn't just spread the, just open the doors. And I feel like that was an example for all of us.
Can you imagine a novel where you start reading it, it was a beautiful day, and everything went perfectly, you turn to the next page, another beautiful day, everything went well. Next page, same. I really like your point here, cool. Yeah. I remember talking once at our house to a godbrother of ours who was very successful, is very successful. And he said, I don't want to hear about the successes, I want to hear about all the failures. That's what inspires me more. I was thinking about that when you said that. I was thinking, and he leaned in and he said, oh, I have so many I could talk about. It was like enlivening for him to speak about. And oftentimes that's where we really find ourselves. We're looking for unflinching devotional service. Unless Krishna gives opportunity for us to flinch, how do we grow? And for pure devotees, that, why is it that Krishna caught Prahlad Maharaj at the bottom of the cliff? Radhikar Man points this out. So he could have just been right there at the top, or bumped the guy out of the way who was going to toss him over the edge. But he caught him at the bottom. And said, what's your reaction when Krishna gives you some so-called setback? It's in those times, obviously, Vipada, Santitasa, Jagat Guru, Bhavato Darshana, Yatsad, Akunar Bhavadarshana. Kunti's prayer, which says, these setbacks, these are the times that are when we're most deeply in thought of you and calling out for you. So everybody sees those as Krishna's arrangement, and there can be a way in which, just like bitter melon, Karela, not everybody likes it. It's an acquired taste. Or, okay, maybe you like Karela, how about neem? There's some stuff that used to be made, I can't find it anymore, by the Bengal Chemical Company. It was called Calmeg. It's the most bitter substance I had ever tasted in my life, but I heard Prabhupada used to take it, so I said, Prabhupada takes it, I'm taking it. And I take a little, and it was like, it's good for you. So these setbacks, they're a tonic, actually. When one decides, as I mentioned before, when you make the decision, this is it, I'm going to serve Krishna. And it doesn't matter what the external facility is, it doesn't matter who says what to whom. I'm going to go on chanting Hare Krishna. It's like one neophyte devotee had gone off through a funeral ceremony somewhere in India. And he checked in with me and he said, yeah, the priest here told me that we can't chant Hare Krishna for the next 10 days. What do you think? And what do you think I said? To tell that priest we don't stop chanting Hare Krishna for anybody. So when we have that mood that I'm doing this, and whatever happens, I'm still going to do it, that's when devotees start feeling really close to Krishna, to their spiritual masters. And they have an acquired taste for that. It's the thing that invigorates them. They bring on the problems. Because when they come, I'm going to show that I'm going to do what Prabhupada did. I'm going to keep going. In the book about Bombay, there was such a huge fight. Prabhupada wouldn't give up. Mr. Nair was a cheater. He cheated many people, allegedly. And, he was trying to cheat Prabhupada. And they got the property, but then he said, you can't build anything here. Because the permit wouldn't come through, and that was by arrangement. So Prabhupada said, okay, we'll take the land, we'll turn it into a bus stop. And all the boys will get on the bus, and we'll just drive around and do Sankirtan, and they can stop here on this property at Chu. Prabhupada wasn't taking guff from anybody. He just said, okay, you try to stop me, we'll go around you, whatever it takes. That's rasika. That's the rasika mood. That's get on a ship when you're 70 years old and sail to America with a little bag of oats. That's real inspiration, spontaneous, that whatever comes, I'm going to follow my spiritual master. That's when the real bhava comes into the heart. That's when it starts to flow, is when one has that determination that do or die for my spiritual master. I'm going to follow Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's process, I'm going to spread it all over the world, whatever comes. And Prabhupada pointed out, being a Goshki Anandi has its problems, because whenever you're dealing with people, you've definitely got problems. It's never going to be smooth. So making the decision early and very deeply that I'm going to follow in the footsteps of Prabhupada, as Nirkula pointed out, he left for us a catalog of obstacles that he had to overcome. See if you can match up. And I've always felt like we may not be able to do the exact same things Prabhupada did, but at least to our capacity we can take the same mood. For instance, Prabhupada used to stay up all night and write, because what he wanted to do constantly was produce more and more books by the order of his spiritual master. We may not be able to produce books on that level or in that volume, but at least we could try to read them with that much vigor, as much as possible. Why not take a vow for that? And whatever capacity one has, if we make the decision to help spread the Sankirtan movement after we've thoroughly convinced ourselves that Lord Chaitanya, there's nobody better than Lord Chaitanya. There just isn't. You can search the annals of history back to the beginning of time, and you will not find anybody better than Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. None of the modern politicians, none of the so-called great philanthropists can compare. The great sports people, I forget what these guys are called, all the names of the sports heroes here in India, they can't match up. Not even in a billion lifetimes. Lord Chaitanya is the best. And if we understand that, if we can follow the footsteps of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who came to that conclusion and said, this must go all over the world. Or Dumdum Thakur said, forget all the other incarnations, guys. Once Lord Chaitanya came, it's all moot. He's the one. And that's what we have, a movement to bring Lord Chaitanya to everybody around the world. And that's what Prabhupada did from this headquarters here in Śrīdhāma, Mayapur, to spread Krishna consciousness to every part of the world. We're part of it. We're it. Look around. This is who we got. And you're in it. And nobody else is flying in from another place. You get to do it. So do your austerity. Do tapasya. A little bit. Get up, chant your rounds, follow 4 regular principles, follow the path of Rupa and Sanatan, get situated in devotional service, and then get a service and make it yours and expand it. I see young people now getting services and they can expand them really quickly. Just last year, Ranchor had, sorry if I'm mentioning any names, he's not here, I hope he's not listening, but we had the same yatra, and we said, we need somebody to run the book distribution. And Ranchor said, well, I'll do it. I've never done anything like this before, nor have I ever distributed books, but I'd like to try. And he excelled. What's more, when he got back, he said, what else you got? And next thing, he's involved in a management level with the DBT, doing stuff that when I hear, what did he just do? He's expanding faster than I've ever seen anybody because there's different pedigree in this room. You guys can take a service and expand it because you have the intelligence and the expertise. You're just born with it. Sorry to break it to you, but it's going to be a lot expected of you. And you'll be able to excel and expand the movement all over the world. So make a prayer here that you can take this. All other kinds of accolades are not permanent and not important, but I mean they're nice to have. But the accolade of being a stalwart devotee of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and doing something substantial, taking a service. Like I just met with on the way out, the leader of the TOPP. Yeah, just sitting next to him, we're talking and saying he's taken on a lot of service. You take the responsibility to get a $1 billion temple built. It's no small task. He's sitting in this big room where people meet regularly every day with 20, 30 people that he's organizing, architects, builders, fundraisers. And that's how you leave your mark in this world. Get something. Get yourself situated, and then get in the game as soon as you can to get some service that you can expand the Sankirtan movement. And you take a little bit, and Lord Chaitanya will make it grow. So that's something you can pray for here in Mayapur. Prabhupada seemed like the underdog. It's the greatest story on earth. That's why everyone keeps telling it. Practically every Sunday feast program, right? Or else. He got on the boat, he had no money, and he came back as a hero. It's the hero's journey story. So every one of us has that legacy. You can be a hero in the material world, like, the rock star who doesn't know when to quit. He's 85 years old. I got a particular person in mind, but I'm not going to say his name. And he's still gyrating on stage, and one day soon he'll drop dead. And what did he really do for the world? So Prabhupada said, you can be a hero in the material world, and it doesn't amount to anything. But what does count is if you're a hero in the Sankirtan movement. And that you can do by being sincere, taking a little service, and then being very serious about it and developing it, and chant really good rounds. And stay out of trouble. Don't fool around, because it's not worth it to ruin a perfectly good life where you have such a high pedigree, you have a human life, you have every advantage. Don't spoil it by fooling around with stupid stuff and stupid people. There's tons of stupid people in the world. Tons. There's millions, billions. Just try to give them prasadam, don't get involved, and stay with the Guru Gana Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and Gorkishore Das Babaji Maharaj. Stay in that society of swans, and do something great. Does that sound okay?
Yes.
On a scale of 1 to 10.
10.
11. Dear Srila Prabhupada, dear Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Sri Panchatattva, if you so desire, please give us a serious heart, serious to serve you and the Sankirtan movement, and do something that's notable in this lifetime to advance your cause in the world. Please let me take any trouble that comes as your extreme mercy on me to grow and becoming tolerant and determined no matter what happens. Thank you for considering our request. Om Tat Sat. Everyone agrees with this prayer in whole or in part. Please unmute and say Har Krishna. Hare Krishna. Vācakālpatarusca kripasindhaveva patitanam bhavnebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha Nantagoti Vaishnaviki Jai Goprevadande Nitai Gauda Hari Bo Hari Bo Hari Bo Nitai Gauda Hari Bo Hari Bo Nitai Gauda Hari Bo. Now a word from our sponsor.
This grace for Shishika Prabhu, please.